Good day, everyone, and welcome to another beautiful day and a wonderful podcast ago. You caught me actually drinking and just having a sip of water, and we've got a beautiful lady on with us. As always, I do not have a clue what she does and what is going on in her life. So as always, I'm flying blind, but that's the best way I like it, because then we have a proper conversation with two curious people finding out what we really should be finding out, because we are genuinely curious. And that's the way I like it. So, Heidi. Welcome, Heidi. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being here. So what I'm going to ask you to do, which is what I ask everybody else, is what are you doing to help people as it is right now in your business? And from there, we'll go with the flow.
Okay, so I'm Heidi Marke, the Gentle Rebel Coach. I help people who are big-hearted, highly driven, gently but firmly rebel against the idea that to have the life you want, you have to push through overwhelm into exhaustion. You don't. Overwhelm is optional.
That's really interesting. Now, usually it's people that will just help anybody that just wants to be a better person, but you're very specific on who you are actually working with. Why are you so specific, and why from the end of the spectrum where they're quite focused and driven? Why take that focus?
Because it's who I am, and I come from the place of imploding my life while prioritizing my well-being and self-care, and losing my hard worked for career, professional standing, financial stability, confidence and health. And so I had to find a way to rebuild my life and to build a successful business in a different way. I was no longer prepared to put up with the normal nonsense that success requires the sacrifice of your ability to switch off and laugh, the ability to hear your partner think, the ability to have a life other than work, the ability to focus and think straight, the ability to sleep, the ability to be yourself. It just doesn't make any sense. That's not success, right?
Okay.
So my people who I love and who are like me tend to be highly sensitive, but probably unaware of that. By that, I mean they're very aware of other people's needs. They're the go-to person to get things done. They know how to make things better for people. They don't want to let anyone down. They're very successful, but don't necessarily feel successful. They have huge hearts, and they're just lovely. I only work with lovely people. So my people are very specific, and they are my favorite people, and I am their biggest cheerleader. And I know them well because I've made it my job to get very curious about them, about what is stopping them being themselves, what is stopping them enjoying the success they've worked so hard for, because they matter. How they are matters. So yeah, it is very, very specific.
And I must admit, it sounds like you've got quite a few things that they've got to tick a box. I mean, obviously that's, there's a better way of saying that, but how do you come across people like this? Because it's not easy to do so. So how do you come across that?
Because I am very intentional with who I'm prepared to magnetize towards me, and the words that I use are their words or my words when I was where they were. And so when you listen and you hear the same stories, the same words over and over again, and you make a study of that, if you take those and give them back, mirror them back, then you reach the people with who they resonate.
That's interesting, because a lot of people, especially in business, they try to be somebody else. And what you're saying is you just be yourself. And by being yourself, you resonate with people who are just like you, because you are you.
Yeah. Because what's better than being in the company of somebody who is themselves? Like as soon as we're around people who are themselves, like I love what you said at the beginning of this episode about authenticity and curiosity. I mean, that's just so important, isn't it? The ability to be ourselves and be curious about ourselves and get to know ourselves and love ourselves. When we do that and give ourselves the freedom to be more fully ourselves, we give others the permission to be more fully themselves. And there's nothing like being in the company of someone who knows and likes themselves, who's at ease with themselves. It makes you feel at home in yourself. And I believe that everybody has a gift. Everybody has something, more than one gift, strength, knowledge, wisdom to share. And when we can hone and tune into that, then we get to do our best work. We get to move through the world with the best energy, just a more accepting, loving, joyful way to be. So yes.
Yeah, I mean, and what I hear through all of that is acceptance, to be able to accept yourself for who you are, to be who you are. And in a way also, and it's not in a way, you actually find peace in who you are. So when you accept who you are, you find a lot of peace and solace within that space, because you're not trying to play Jekyll and Hyde all the time.
Exactly.
So
which is the issue I have with this, with the self-development world, is this idea that there's something fundamentally wrong with us and that we need to constantly improve ourselves. So I like to turn that on its head and say, well, I retrained with a Zen master, so I'm taking the Zen principle that you are perfect. You are perfect and a work in progress. And what I add to that is the work is to let go of all the ways you think there's something fundamentally wrong with you. So that doesn't mean, there's something about you that's hurting yourself or other people and you just gloss over it. What it means is the getting curious about who you are, getting curious about what makes you tick, or you're focusing on your strengths rather than treating yourself as a problem to be solved, finding out how to be at your best, how to live your full adventure. And that requires letting go of stuff. And fundamentally, it's this idea there's something wrong with you. I don't believe there is. And that's an invitation, is what I call one of my gently rebellious lenses. I invite you to put on the gently rebellious lens and look at yourself through the idea, what if there's nothing wrong with me? If I start from there, how does that change how I feel? How does that change how I act? How does that change how I behave towards myself and other people? Does it make it easier to be myself? Does it make it easier to take good care of myself? Does it make me more responsible for myself? Does it make me kinder and nicer and easier to be around? Probably, because it's such a relief to know, actually, you're okay. You're doing fine. There's nothing wrong with you.
Okay, so let's speak more about you. Now, you are a person that is happy in your own skin, for sure. But was it always like that?
God, no. And I'd argue that I'm not all the time, because there's always something that could get triggered or something else that comes up, or each time I want to do something else, something will come up telling me, oh no, you can't do that, and the whole imposter syndrome comes back and the whole what's wrong with me comes back. So when I'm talking about this idea of being at home in yourself, that's because that's what I want more of. It's not that I got it, it's that that's what I want, and that's my intention, is to walk that talk, to get curious, to practice it, and to help my clients do the same. So no, absolutely not. And I'm 56, so I've come a long way, but it is just for me a continual practice. So I've had all sorts of adventures. I think it feels like I've had several different lives or chapters. I've been a single mum with 2 boys. I've been a kind of hippie windsurfer. I had quite a difficult childhood. I've been a maths teacher. I've been a coach for a long time. Then I've been a coach in this niche as an entrepreneur. I'm an author. I'm a podcaster. Like, there's lots of different chapters. There's lots of different, and at each stages of that, each time that I dare to have the courage to say yes to myself and give myself the freedom to be more fully myself, each time that raises stuff that comes up and says, who do you think you are? You can't do that. It's impossible. you're too old, you're too this, you're too that, right? That's just na, you know.
Yeah. It happens to all of us. No, it happens to all of us. We have good days and bad days, and it's a natural process. It never stops. It's ups and downs, and that's the way it should be. And that's what makes us all so different, because of our experiences through those ups and downs is what makes our life so colorful. But what I would ask you is, we did have a conversation just before we came on the podcast, and I asked you, are you neurodivergent? I'm being honest, team, listeners, I don't have a clue what people do, what what issues they have. I literally don't. But what I do, I will ask them one question. Are you neurodivergent, or have you had any trauma? And as soon as they give me that keyword, which is neurodivergent or trauma, I say, stop it there. That's fine. That's all I need to know, and I go with the flow. Now, what Heidi did say is, no, I'm not neurodivergent, but I do. And please carry on, Heidi, with what you were saying.
Okay, so I have an issue with the neurodivergent conversation because I don't like labels that restrict.
Okay. And do you think neurodivergence label is restricting?
I think it can be. I'm not saying it is.
Okay.
So because freedom is my number one value, and I help people be more fully themselves. And part of that will be, for a lot of my clients, that will be exploring different labels. Some of them like to explore the ADHD one. Some people like to explore the highly sensitive, empathic one. All sorts of things, right? Okay. And that's great. That's good. That's to be encouraged. Anything we can do to get curious about ourselves, learn more about ourselves as people, and more about other people, so that we understand ourselves and interact better with other people, is great. The issue I have is if you take a label and then you start with a label can be wonderful. It can be like, yes, that's me. I found people like me. This explains so much. And the relief is so good, right?
That's right.
But if it then becomes because I'm this, I can't do this. Because of this, I have to have the world set up around me like this. Mm-hmm. If that starts to become restrictive, so it's not the label, it's how you respond to it. If it becomes
the perception.
Yeah, if it becomes restrictive in any way, sometimes what happens is we move through these labels as we find out more about ourselves. We practice self-awareness, self-knowledge, self-acceptance, self-love. If we get to a stage where it becomes unhelpful, I would invite you to say, do I need that anymore? Or do I want to keep it but not tell anybody anymore? Or do I love it and I want to tell everyone? Like, I don't care. Do what's right for you. I just don't like it when people say, I'm this, therefore this. What if that's not true for you? Mm-hmm. What if for you? Because within each neurodivergent kind of package, spectrum. Mm-hmm. There's loads of differences. Yes, and if you then become, well, I'm this, well, what about the rest of you? What if you're more than this? You're so much, and you're I love people. And so, for example, I said, no, I'm not neurodivergent, because that's not how I see myself. Now, if you said to me, could I be? Yeah, I'm a highly sensitive person, which means that I process everything differently and deeper. So it takes me longer to process things. Uh-huh. And it means that every time, for example, for me personally, it means every time I walk into a room, I pick up on things that other people don't see. It's not always great. It's like being a canary in a coal mine. Yeah. Sometimes I have to walk out, or I choose. See, I'm changing my language there. Not I have to. Sometimes I choose to walk out of shops because I find the lighting or the colours or often it's the music too much, and it overwhelms my senses, and I don't like the feeling. So I will choose to leave. Now, the reason I changed my language from I have to is because I don't want any restrictions. I don't want to set up my mind into saying, you can't do this because
it restricts you.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. And so what I'm trying to do there is take it, learn about it, dump the label, take the bits that work for me and be me. Yeah. That's what I like to do.
No, I hear you. No, I must admit, when I noticed that you did change that word, you actually unchained yourself. Because when you say when you give the power to the other person, whether it's the other person's fault or something else's fault, or you had to, then you can't, because it's the other person's fault, or you can't, or whatever. And I'm a stickler to say that I'm a Buddhist, so the power is within us. That's how Buddhism.
It's an inside out job, right?
Exactly. So when you change those words, I heard the power difference in just listening, because I understood what you were doing there. And words are power. If you say the wrong thing and you continuously doing so, you become that can't, or I will not, or it's not possible. You become that.
And also, having worked in education and raised children, I've seen what happens when a label is assigned and the power that can do to lift originally and then squish and restrict. Okay. And so I'm really aware of that and have quite a lot of experience of that. And I'm a natural rebel. If somebody says you can't, I'm bloody well going to find a way to. Do you see what I mean? It's like, don't tell me I can't.
Oh, yeah. I can see you're stubborn.
Yeah, so I'm going to find a way, and that means for the people I love, and that means for my clients, I'm going to find a way for them to find the answers within them that free them to be more fully themselves, because I see the work as finding the freedom to be more fully yourself into your greatest adventure. No restrictions.
No, I see what you're saying. Let's go further back into your life, because you said that you was quite a difficult child. I did pick up on that one. I didn't forget that one. I told you I had the bad memory, but trust me, there's certain things, because I was a bit of an awkward child too. So I resonated with that one. So let's go back because look, the reason why I like going back into history, it's the beginnings of who you've become. You have to take a journey. So the beginning is always important. So tell us about the naughty Heidi, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so I would argue I was not naughty enough.
Sure?
Yeah. I had a difficult childhood. I wasn't a difficult child.
Okay.
I was a very good, very compliant child, very sensitive.
Okay.
And for a lot of sensitive children most families don't know how to cope with a sensitive child, or might not notice it. And so for me personally, I grew up in a very, very strict religious household.
Okay.
And I won't, my father's dead, so I'm quite happy to talk about him. I won't talk about anybody else because they're alive and that's their story. And I've forgiven them, and you forgive and you move on, right? But for me, the way it shaped me was that I learned to be very self-reliant very early.
Okay.
And I also think that if you're highly sensitive and you grow up in a difficult household, you learn how to read rooms. You also learn that you don't know how you feel until you've worked out how the adults feel.
Okay. Which
then I know that's had an effect, that had a deep effect on me for many years, and in some ways still does. So I have to be aware of that. Am I tuning into how I feel, or am I tuning into other people? And I know that's very common for a lot of people, where your attention can be rooted in, is everybody else happy? Because when everybody else is happy, then I feel safe. And I think that's quite a common experience for a lot of people. That was certainly true for me. So I can see why I'm like I am now. But I'm 56. That's a long time ago. I've raised 2 children. I've done a hell of a lot of work on healing and growth and reflection. So what I would say now is, what's good about my childhood is it makes me who I am now. So the high sensitivity, now I understand it better, which is part of the learning, the neurodivergence.
That's right.
Knowledge is that when I use it with awareness, instead of feeling bowled over and overwhelmed by the world, I can use it to make things better. I can use it to look after myself properly, which it took me till nearly about now to work that one out. I just didn't get that my number one job is to look after myself properly. Getting that's a game changer. Because then everything becomes much easier. Oh, so I matter. How I feel matters. you know, looking after myself matters. That was a big shift for me, particularly in my 50s, actually. But it makes me able to see things other people can't see. So when I'm coaching someone or teaching, I can feel and see things that are really helpful to that process and make me a very, very good coach. And so I'm grateful for that now.
So when you got to the pivotal point of when you realized that you matter, what was it that actually pushed you over the edge and you thought, you know what, and then you saw the light? What happened at the time?
I say there were several chapters. I mean, 6 years ago, I completely burnt out, quit my job. And so that was a big one because I lost my hard worked for career, my financial stability, my professional respect, my confidence, my health, everything, and had to start again. So that's a pretty big one. That was a like, oh, there's my non-negotiables. You know, it's like, because it took me until my body, every cell in my body was screaming at me for me to listen. So I was still overriding the signals from my body about like the need for basic care, like a lot of us do, right? We get stuck in our heads and we treat our bodies and as an inconvenient way to transport our minds around, you know. And then for me, a lot of it also was in my 50th year, I retrained with a Zen master, and that taught me a lot. So it taught me a lot about the mind-body connection. It taught me a lot about the fact that I matter, that there's nothing wrong with me. So that,
Interesting. And let's speak about that one, because not many people have a crisis in their life and go, let me just meet up with a Zen master. And how did that come about?
Yeah, well, not actually quite in that order. So I hit 50 and it's like, what do I want to do? It felt quite it was significant for lots of reasons. I knew that I wanted to leave my career, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I set up my business, but I didn't really know what it was going to be. It was like something to do with well-being, because that's my passion. And then so I don't know, it was kind of by accident. It's quite a weird thing, actually. So I'd always wanted to go on a retreat. The family got together, bought me a retreat. I happened to pick a Zen retreat.
Okay.
Then I decided suddenly that I would retrain as a yoga teacher. That seemed like a good thing to do because it was not mind-based, it was body-based. And I was reaching a stage where I could see I was stuck in my head, overusing my head. I was headed for burnout, but not quite aware of it. Just knew I needed to change career. And I looked and looked and looked everywhere for a yoga teacher training, and nothing spoke to me until I saw this weird Zen thing. And Zen yoga, and nobody's heard of it. What the hell is it? And it happened to be, and this is weird because I look back and think, why did you not twig? I actually picked the same people for the Zen retreat as the Zen yoga teacher training, but didn't quite twig what I was up to.
Okay.
So I kind of feel like there's a deep calling to that. Like that's what I was drawn towards. Anyway, for my 50th birthday, I went on this Zen retreat. So I drove there. It's about 40 minutes from my house, and it was a 64-hour retreat. And I'm just chatting to people, and then I knew it was a silent retreat, but I'd been busy and I kind of wasn't really aware of what I was up to. Okay. And after dinner, people were saying at dinner something about, we won't be able to talk after dinner. I'm like, okay, this doesn't, I really need a spa. What am I doing here? And then this Zen master guy reads like says, but it was like being read the Riot Act, all the rules for this silent retreat. And it was really serious. I don't know if you know much about Zen as opposed to Buddhism, pure Buddhism, but it's hardcore, it's strict, like the rules were like, and I just sat there going, whoa, it's not quite what I need right now, but in for a penny, I'm here. I can always go home in the morning. And it turned out to be an enlightenment retreat, which is this method of kind of like pressurized koan answering. Do you know about koans?
No.
So a koan is an unanswerable question, and Zen what I like about Zen is it's the rebel Buddhism. It likes to play with oxymorons. I love an oxymoron, hence the gentle rebel coach. Gentle rebellion don't go together, so I put them together because it works for me. So what a koan is an unanswerable question that a lot of countries in the East have. Some have it the same question their whole life, some move on. The first question is usually, who am I? But it's not a question that goes to the mind. So you wouldn't say, I'm Heidi, I'm a coach, blah, blah, blah. You kind of swallow it down. You ask your heart, your body, your inner being, who are you? Tell me who you are. And so the only words you speak are the answers to your koan when asked by the person opposite you, who changes all the time, and it's under intense pressure where like you all come in silence and you sit opposite each other, and then they ring this bell and you go, what's your koan? And then the person asks you, tell me who you are. And then you just say whatever comes to you. And the thing is, what was really interesting for me is I could hear everybody else answering it with their minds, right? Because that's where you got to start somewhere, right? That didn't happen to me. The weirdest thing happened to me, right? Because I'd had such a strict upbringing.
Yeah.
This works on me. This was super powerful. I was like, right, follow the rules. Just do what you're told. I did exactly what I was told. Within an hour or less, I was like, bing, just like the whole world just opened up, and I got this mass sense of oneness. I was like, that's who I am. Oh my goodness, like this beautiful, and there's no words for it. And that's the point, right? There are no words to describe that sense of being one with the universe, just all of it. It was the most incredible experience. And obviously that changed my life, right? Because from that moment on, I understood at absolute core level that there's nothing wrong with me.
Can I just stop you there just quickly? Do the best you can, but try to explain that sense. I know you're smiling. I know you're just about to spit out the water, because she was drinking, listeners. So when I asked her, she goes, really? And she had a mouthful of water. She's just about to spit it out. Do the best you can
to explain that feeling. Because there will be some listeners that will be curious about this oneness in just less than an hour. Explain it in as the best you can, as colourful as you can. Yeah, as colourful. So it is very much like being on drugs. Everything is very sparkly. Everything's just so beautiful. You cry, like looking at a flower. The flower is like 1,000 times more beautiful than normal, but you are the flower. So you feel the beauty of the flower as part of your heart. I don't know, this is just my experience. Like it's just there's no thought at all. And I remember walking around these beautiful grounds in the garden in this state, and just like deciding, right, I think, and there's no thought. So then there's like, I could feel this decision to try and walk to this tree on the other side of the field, but because there's no thought, and because there's no need to move, because everything is perfect, it's sheer bliss. Every question's answered, everything's just perfect. And I managed to get to the tree eventually, but it took me a long time. I mean, it's like being off your trolley, because it's like, oh look, there's a beautiful blade of grass, oh look, there's a twig. Seriously, like twigs looks like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was just absolutely incredible. And it is this connection where it felt to me like every cell in my body was part of the universe, like I'm made of stars, and also that everybody else is also, everything's love, everything's kindness, but still being the essence of Heidi. And that's really cool. So I didn't lose my Heidi-ness, it's just more. So yeah,
can I say
it sounds insane.
So can I just say that is the reason why you probably didn't want to move to the tree is that you felt like you was part of the tree. There was no reason to move.
There's no reason to go and see the tree, but I did want to go and hang out with the tree, because so there is this idea, isn't there, that we are the divine, and looking at the tree, that we look at the tree so the tree can see itself. And I got that real sense of that, and that was beautiful. Now what's interesting about this experience is you can't hang on to it, and you're told not to attempt to. I tried really hard to hold on, I was like hanging out with buttercups, thinking, right, buttercups, I have to pick something that's really common, so if I see it again I'll remember this. but you can't, like, so I'm describing it in words and I'm getting some sense of the feeling, but you're not supposed to remain in that. Like, it's a glimpse, it's an opening, it changes your life, but and you don't forget it, but you can't just, it's not a state. I would say it's our natural sense of being, and then we forget again, and that's okay, because we're having an adventure, right? We're trying to work out who we are, and I don't know. Anyway, I've done that retreat twice, and both times was just incredible.
And so you had the same sensation the second time when you went to the retreat?
Yeah.
And can you not have that sensation yourself when you're at home and go through the trance? Can you do that?
I get it quite easily only because I'm highly sensitive, so I'm hilarious. So for example, I see a flower sometimes and it's so beautiful I just cry.
Yeah.
I am in, that is one of the advantages of being highly sensitive. An HSP is it's like, oh my god, they're so beautiful. Like, once we went to a local art exhibition, I walked into this room and there was a photograph of a baby newborn calf, right? And I saw the picture and tears just poured out. My partner just looked at me going, oh, she's crying again because she's so happy. Like, and so he bought it for me, gave me for Christmas. Another time we were in the New Forest and I saw this baby horse, and the same thing happened. And that does kind of, I am the kind of person who's easily moved to tears by the absolute beauty of the world.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's also quite funny because it's like she's crying again. Yeah.
No, well, listen, as you said before, no one should be the same. We're all very different, right?
Exactly.
So life would be very boring if we was all the same. And to be honest, that sounds beautiful to me. If it works for you and you're happy, feeling that and feeling that closeness and that oneness to nature and everything else, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I'm so happy for you to be able to be like that. Other people may not want to be with that, like that, and that's fine.
That's fine, exactly.
That's the beauty of the world, right? That we are very different, and that's the greatness of us being us. We just have to be happy in our own skin, in our own oneness, and just be happy for everybody else that's happy. But listen, my philosophy in life is I don't care what anybody does as long as they don't affect an innocent person or a child. As long as that exists, I don't have to believe what you do. I don't have to agree with what you do. As long as you are happy, tomorrow I may agree. I may have the experience and think, oh my God, I remember what Heidi said. I didn't agree with her, but 2 years later, after going through this process, going through these things, I know this is what growth is all about. So it's not for me to dictate to anybody what they're doing right and what's doing wrong.
I agree. As long as you're not hurting anyone else.
Exactly.
It's none of my business.
And
I really don't care. I can't and don't want to be in the business of controlling and dictating to other people what they feel and think.
Yes.
Just don't hurt anyone else, and hopefully behave with respect to yourself, which is why I think it's so important to get to know yourself, because when you treat yourself with respect and you drop the judgment about yourself, you tend to mirror that back out. It's like you said, it's inside.
No, totally. And look, thank you for sharing that, because some people may be a bit curious to share something like that. Otherwise, they may, sound a bit nutty. I mean, I don't think you do.
I'm very, very grounded.
I think that's a wonderful story. And I'm glad that you can revisit that state over and over again, because the majority of people can't do that. Some people just feel it one time and that's it. But as you said, because you're of a certain way and you're quite sensitive, you're able to revisit that state once.
But that's also because I prioritize joy. So I know that I need to be surrounded by plants and trees and animals, and silence. So I live in the countryside. So part of that is that self-awareness and knowledge that life, that slower, quieter, more gentle way of being is what works for me. And therefore, for me, getting up in the morning and wandering around my garden in my pajamas, hanging out with my plants, with my dogs, that's deeply important to me, because that's what nourishes me. Now, I know there's plenty of people for whom that doesn't work. Like, there are people who love being in a city and they love everything about a city, whereas to me, you know, I go into London and I'm like, great for a day, then get me home, because it's too much. Like, I just don't get it. Everybody wears grey and black and like dark colours.
No, they don't. I live in London. They don't wear grey and black. Don't believe that. The sky's always grey and black.
But there's a lot of like avoidance of eye contact. I'm the kind of person on the tube who's like trying to catch people's eyes and go hi, because in the countryside you say hello to people, but in a city you can't, because there's too many people and it's probably too overwhelming. And but you know, it's just very different. And you find what works for you, find what makes your heart sing, find what nourishes you, find and also I don't believe there's one right answer for all time. So what is it you need to be yourself right now? What works for you at this season in your life? And then be open to growing and changing, like you said, so that you can then live the next chapter with excitement and curiosity and fullness. And that's it, right? It's an adventure. Any one, find out what works for you.
No, I agree with that, because the thing is, you're forever changing and evolving with your different experiences. So your needs will change with your experiences. Yeah. So it makes you have to evaluate your life. I shouldn't say you have to.
No, you can do what you want. You don't have to.
Exactly. But you can evaluate your life. Yeah. If you want to keep on growing exponentially. And I tend to, am I an overthinker? Some people could say I overthink, but I tend to analyze and do that evaluation thing, because I do understand from the point of view we are always experiencing and growing, and so you have to evaluate your life and how you react to people and so on and so forth. And that's another podcast for another time. So we could go on about that. So how wonderful. So your experience with the retreat was amazing. I'm glad you went down the route of that, because it was the right thing for your life state. And that's how part of that experience has brought you to the point of accepting yourself, being true to yourself and to other people. Thus, at the same time, you generating the right people around you, because you are just you.
Yep.
And it's as simple as that. That sounds simple, and it's not to do, in we say that, and most things in life are very simple when you write it down, but because of the dynamics of our past and our present and etc., it's complicated from that point of view. So, but if we were robots, it is that simple. But not so as human beings. But I'm glad you got to that state where you just accept yourself, you're straightforward, you're honest, you feel correctly with you've got a big heart and you want the similar people. And that shows straight away. And I'm really glad to hear about your journey. So tell me more about your business side of things. So how do you help people? Do you help people from a one-to-one point of view, a corporate point of view? Do you do a group of retreats? What do you do?
I am a coach, so I do one-to-one coaching. I also have a community and do group coaching. I have group coaching. I have a group program. I do everything, really. I do everything from book, podcast. So plenty of beautiful and very helpful free resources or low-cost resources, and then all the way up to one-to-one coaching. So yeah, plenty for whichever point of curiosity you're at.
That's great. Oh, I suppose we'll have to put a line in the sand, unfortunately. But I had the most wonderful conversation with you. Considering that I didn't know what you was all about. So Heidi, how did you think it went? Because you probably thought when I spoke to you, and you thought, really? You don't know? What did you think when I said that?
No, I'm quite open to that. I think it's refreshing.
Okay, good. Well, I like it. It works for me. So,
exactly.
And I accept that of myself.
Exactly.
So So that's why it works, and that's why both of us are now talking, because I have similar people that I speak with, which is great. How can people contact you? How do they go about doing that?
If you go to my website, you can book a curiosity call and have a chat if you want to chat about working with me. That's really no pressure. That's literally a cup of tea over Zoom. Always lovely to talk to you. If you want to know more about me, I think the best way to get to know me personally is to listen to my podcast, because there's nothing like listening to a podcast to get to know someone.
Okay, hold on. What's your podcast called?
Overwhelm is Optional.
There you go. You know where to go. Okay, carry on. Sorry to stop you.
I have a book which is on Amazon, which is also called Overwhelm is Optional. And where else? I'm mainly on LinkedIn, sometimes on Instagram, and I'm just starting to grow my YouTube channel actually, which is quite fun.
So there's lots of things going on in the background and lots of ways for people to be able to contact you. As always, community, what I'll do is I will leave all the details down below. You'll be able to contact her very easily, and you know how to connect with her. And she's the lady for you. You heard, she's learned from a Zen master, so who better to learn from? Yeah. So with that said, Heidi, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been really nice.
No, it's a pleasure. And listeners, we will speak very soon, and sayonara.